All right. Hello, everyone. We are live. Welcome to the How to Break a Heart in 3 Easy Steps panel. It's part of the Latinx Kidlit Book Festival. We are so excited to be here, and I am so honored to be here with 3 absolutely fantastic debut authors. Let me just say right now, if y'all haven't read these books, you need to get on it. They are fantastic. A couple housekeeping things before we get started. If you could please read our anti-harassment policy in the chat box, that would be amazing. And do not forget that you need to subscribe to the Latinx Kidlit Book Festival's YouTube channel. If you're tuning in from a classroom or you're an educator, we highly recommend that you check out our school visit fund. You can enter to win a free author visit from an author or illustrator. What could be better? The way to enter is going to be in the chat, so you can check that out if you are interested. All right, y'all. This is going to be so much fun. I'm so excited to be here. I'm Elle Gonzalez Rose. I am the author of Caught in the Bad Fauxmance. There it is. A queer YA rom-com that's coming out on December 5th from Joy Revolution about an aspiring artist who decides to fake date his rival in a mutually beneficial fake dating scheme. So I'm all about the tropes. I'm very excited. And now I'm going to throw it over to our wonderful panelists to introduce themselves, starting with James.
Hey everyone, my name is James Ramos. I'm the author of The Wrong Kind of Weird, and it is about a nerdy kid who has to decide between being who he is and being true to his friends versus trying to change himself for the sake of who he thinks he's in love with. And it's a love letter to like 80s rom-coms and Mean Girls, basically.
And I am Jessica Parra. I am the author of Rubi Ramos's Recipe for Success, which I like to say is a Cuban girl's guide to tea and tomorrow meets a SoCal version of the Great British Bake Off, where my Paul Hollywood character is hot. So that is a short pitch. As far as like tropes, it's foodie romance. There is cinnamon rolls, love interest, ride or die friendships, and yeah, that's me in my book.
Hi, and I'm Elle Cerón. I am the author of Viva Lola Espinoza. It is Wizard of Oz meets Pride and Prejudice set in Mexico City, in which our main character, Lola, gets a C in Spanish and then is shipped off to Mexico City to her grandmother's house for a very eventful summer full of a curse, a love triangle, and plenty of hijinks.
How are you guys like not sold already? Like these pitches are fantastic. All right, so we're going to get started getting into the game in just a moment. So I want to quickly explain for all the viewers out there how this is going to work. We're essentially kind of choosing like almost like a choose your own adventure romance style, where we're going to have a couple of scenarios with 2 options, and all of us together, including you in the comments, are able to weigh in on what we should do. Do we want to break a heart? Do we want to create a love story? In the end, we'll have to see what happens. Are we going to break the heart? Are we going to get our happily ever after? Who knows? But before we get started, I kind of want to do a temp check on the room, see how we're feeling. I want to ask everyone, what are some of your favorite tropes and what are some of your least favorites? You can answer in the comments as well. Let's just try to see where we might be leaning depending on the situation. I'll throw it to Jess first.
Oh God. Okay, as far as tropes that I love, I just love really sweet love interests. So anything with like a sunshine, a himbo, just anything funny and cute, I like. As far as tropes, and was a great question because I was thinking about, and like there was a lot that I don't like that immediately came to head, but then I was thinking that like if they're done, I don't know, in the right hands, I think that any trope could work. So it's like I'm down for everything.
All right. I think you'll be on the making a love story side then. Let's see. All right. Ella, you next.
I walk a very thin line, actually. I really love adversaries to lovers or friends to lovers, or rivals to lovers, all that stuff. Where I draw the line really is enemies to lovers, which I know is very popular, and I understand it. I just want it to be, a little less of the hatred, and I like a healthy bit of rivalry and animosity. The hatred it's very hard to do right. There are definitely books that I've read where enemies to lovers is perfect. But, so if you have any ideas of really good enemies to lovers that you think might change my mind, let us know, and maybe I will be converted.
Y'all got to leave the recommendations in the comments because I know people love enemies to lovers. All right, James, let us know what you're into.
That's actually a perfect segue because I am such a sucker for enemies to lovers. I do agree with you. Like they can't like hate each other. Like that's weird. I haven't seen that happen in real life where two people like hate each other and then they become like, I feel like there's a reason. But like if they like annoy each other and then like they start to like, oh, this was a misunderstanding or whatever. Oh my gosh, I love that so much. I will read that. It doesn't even matter like the genre. If that's a plot line in a book, then I'm just like, I gotta read it. I gotta know what happens. So that's my candy there.
There we go. I have to say Rivals to Lovers is my favorite, and Fake Dating, because I mean it's in my book. But like what you guys are saying to the exact same thing, where I was like, they're not enemies. They're not like holding a knife to each other's throats, which is like its own fantastic trope as well. But they're just petty they're just petty teenagers. That's all it is. But I think that the only trope I don't love is like the secret baby trope. And I don't think we're going to see any of that in a YA romance panel. I don't know. Like maybe there's some twists and turns in the game that we don't know about. I also don't love when the love interest was a bully. I think that's like in the same vein of enemies to lovers. I draw the line at when they're like actively bullying the main character. I'm like, no. I'm petty and I don't forgive. So I would not forgive. But let's see where the game takes us. We can go ahead and get started. All right, let's see our first prompt. Let's get ready to weigh in. All right, we're guiding our main character through romance or heartbreak. Let's see how we're feeling today. We start during summer vacation. It's summer break, and you're on vacation with your family when your childhood rival, don't ask why they're here, suddenly approaches you and tells you they need your help. This one is actually based on my book. I forgot to say that earlier, that these are a couple of these are based on our books. So this is actually the premise of my book. So I'm curious to see where y'all take it, because it's pretty clear where my main character took it. So our options are, do you hear him out or do you walk away? Because you can't waste precious vacation time. Let's start with James, then Ella, then Jessica.
I mean, this early on, you gotta walk away. Like you gotta do it for the plot. Don't hear him out, because then it's gonna be too easy. If he wants to talk, he's gonna have to fight for it. So I definitely think walk away. Plus, you have your own, like, if you're the protagonist, you've got your own journey to head out on. So can't be bothered with that yet.
See, I'm on team hear him out, mostly just because I need to know what the leverage is. I need to understand where I might actually finally have the upper hand if they're my rival. And so I think holding them out is a great way, as Elle was saying, about being super petty. Like, you hear them out. You be real petty to hear them out, and you withhold your answer until you decide what is the most beneficial to you.
I'm walking. Yeah, no, bye.
I appreciate, Ella, that you were so optimistic about that, because I definitely did not take the pettiness in that direction. I also am walking away. I'm like, I'm exactly what it says. I am on vacation. I'm not sitting here talking to this man that I don't like. So I think that means the majority says walk away. I'm so sorry to this man. Your arrival is surly, but you get to enjoy the rest of your summer before school starts. Oh, see, we at least had fun. We'll never know what he wanted. It's only the first day, and your best friend has decided he wants to ask out the girl of his dreams, someone who you are not a huge fan of and wants your help asking her out. Not to hog the thing, but this is also based on another one of my books. I swear these two plot lines are not in the same book. This is based on my second book, 10 Things I Hate About Prom, which comes out May 14th. But yes, that one is friends to lovers. Big switch up from the first one. But what are you going to do? Are you going to help your bestie? Or are you going to shut him down? Let's start with Ella, then Jessica, then James. Reverse from last time.
Gosh, I'm like debating whether or not I should be a good role model or I should be a good, but also you can be a good friend and do it both ways. I'm going to abstain my vote because I think being a good friend, I see 50-50. I see both sides here. So I'm very curious to see what other people say.
I would for sure help my best friend. Friendships are very important to me, but I'm also petty and a little shady. I'm a lawyer in real life. So I would then work behind the scenes to sabotage him or something. So it's like I would help the bestie out. This should be like a novel right now. But yeah, I would like secretly sabotage.
Believe it or not, it is. It is a novel.
This is tough. I feel like, I do want to support the besties, but if it's someone I'm not a huge fan of, like, I don't want that person like in our circle. So I think it just depends on my mood, but I think I would probably end up helping the bestie. I wouldn't be happy about it, but I would help the bestie, I think.
All of y'all who said help but sabotage are mind readers, because that is what happens in the book. That's not a spoiler. That's in the blurb. It is that she decides to help but chooses to sabotage the bestie. And it sounds like that's what we're leaning towards here. We're gonna help, but I think the theme here is petty. We're gonna help, but we're gonna be petty about it. So we're gonna help our bestie. You can't help being a good friend, even if you know his crush is not worthy. You remain grumpy for the rest of the day. That's fair. Your rival is in class with you. This person's everywhere. You lock eyes. The summer break clearly on both of your minds. When the bell rings, they almost stop to talk, but then turn around and leave the class. So moody. After the emotional day at school, you decide to go to the beach. Soon, you lock eyes with a cute surfer. You smile. They smile. Are we going to make the first move? And I believe this is based on Jessica's book, Rubi Ramos, Recipe for Success. So I'm going to let you go first. Let us know what you would do.
Yes, you have to seize the date. If there's like a hot surfer there, you always have to say yes. Carpe diem.
All right, James, what do you think?
Yeah, I would seize the date. If I lock eyes with a cute surfer, like, it would be weird for me not to do anything like that. I don't want to, so I'd go. I gotta have to make eye contact, go talk to him. Worst come to worst, they're looking at someone behind me, which happens a lot to me in real life. But if it's like specific, then I want to know so that we can move from there. So definitely.
I think we're 3 for 3. You have to. I'm also from Los Angeles, where this is kind of all of my summer plans when I was a teenager were doing exactly this. It never quite came to fruition, so now I'm living vicariously through this answer.
There you go. This is a nice non-controversial one. Why wouldn't you talk to the hot surfer? Why not? And actually, while we're here, I'm going to be peppering in a couple of questions throughout this to help everyone get to know all of these amazing books a little bit better. Since we're putting ourselves in Ruby's shoes, I think this is a great time to ask a question that I have specifically for Jessica, which is that your debut features a baking competition. If you were in Ruby's shoes, we already know that you'd talk to the hot surfer, but what would you have made if you were in the baking competition yourself to impress the judges?
Okay, well, first, a caveat. I have to keep it real, since I'm shady, but I always keep it real. I probably would have gotten cut in the first round. I only last week or 2 weeks ago got my oven fixed. So all throughout the drafting of Ruby Ramos, I had no oven, so I never taste tested any of the things. I just used Ruby as an excuse to binge and re-binge the Great British Bake Off. So as far as impressing the judges, I think I would, because I don't know how to bake, so I would just have to impress them with my charm. Or I would have to go and buy something and then pretend that, like, maybe hide it in the oven or something and pretend that I'm making something and then just like pull it out. Like yeah, nothing. So I would have not fared as well as Ruby did for sure.
Just throw like a pie and then like in the microwave and take it out like right before. Be like, this is fresh. It's fine. Well, now we know. But at least for now, we're going to seize the date, see what happens with our hot surfer. Surfer Crush is super sweet and very interested. You end up walking together and come across a baking competition. You decide to sit and watch. Your BFF is there. His crush is in the competition. Our BFF and our rival are just all over the place today. Your BFF's crush is on a roll, but soon you notice something weird. They're switching labels on ingredients and sabotaging the other bakers. No one else sees this. Do you keep the information to yourself or... So are we keeping it to ourselves? Friend is already mad at you, or that's sabotage? We're going to talk about it. All right, let's go Ella first.
I'm going to keep it to myself because they're probably going to get found out, and I don't need that karma on me. So just kind of let time take its course and see what happens. I'm sure the judges are very smart and they'll realize a thing or two down the line, and then my hands are clean.
Very good. That's a nice, smart, diplomatic answer. All right, let's see James next.
I wish I could be as diplomatic, but I would definitely tell somebody. Like, that's because that solves my problem right there. It's just like, hey, my BFF's mad at me, but in the long run, I think that they'll appreciate, like, you don't want to be with somebody who's switching ingredients. I can't allow that. The fact that I don't like the person notwithstanding, but yeah, I would tell someone, like, right away. I'd make a scene of it. I'd just be like, hey, check that oven because I don't know what's in there. They didn't make it. So yeah, for sure.
It sounds like Jessica might be the person that we're ratting on. There's something already pre-made in the oven. We're telling on you. But now tell us what you think, since you might be the person we're ratting on.
Oh my God, that is so funny because I was thinking that too. Because my initial instinct after, like for me, it would be just ratting them out for sure. But then hearing Ella's answer, then it like sort of had me maybe going one way or the other. But then I think ultimately, by sabotaging them and talking, I could have my cake and eat it too, because then I could tell, because it's like Ella is right. Like they're going to get found out, which maybe that's a spoiler or not in Ruby. So the person who, sabotage is going to get found out, but then I would also then get the chance to tell my best friend, see, I told you so. I was right. You should have listened. So I think I would definitely talk.
All right. So I think that's 2 votes for talk, 1 vote for keeping it to ourselves, but it does seem like we're, again, still being a little bit petty because it's going to come out eventually. But I think we're going that's sabotage. I think we're talking. All right. You call her out and she gets disqualified. Even though it was the right thing to do, your BFF is crushed and doesn't want to talk to you. This is a rough day. Your BFF still won't talk to you. They need to work things out. But there's a big test this week and you usually study together. Your parents suggest going to the study center. Your tutor ends up being your rival, of course, who looks both angry and happy to see you. It's confusing. Whatever. You need a good grade for college, so you suck it up. But you can't help but wonder, was there something more there over the summer? Do you dare make a move? Ooh, I like that this rival keeps coming back. I feel like we got to give this rival a name. All right, so yes, we feel the spark, or no, we're too stressed over the test. Let's go James first. What do you think?
I feel the spark. They look both angry and happy. Like that's my sweet spot. So I'm just like, I need to know what you're angry about and happy about. And is it me in both cases? I kind of hope that it is, because I'm okay with that.
It could be like a little, like a grump kind of thing is going on here. Maybe they're just someone who's just a little angry looking at all times. who knows? Jessica, what do you think?
James couldn't have said it better. Yes, I feel the spark. Like this is now giving me, besides like our books' vibes, like all of them, like a weird, combination together of like Raylo vibes. So I am loving this.
There's going to be some, this is going to take a sci-fi turn soon. Let's see. Ella, what do you think? Take us home.
So personally, I would focus on the test. I was a straight A student, and much like Lola in my book, and I took that very seriously. But in the spirit of narrative structure and getting really messy and seeing what happens, we're so sorry. We're going to forget about the cute server for a second and follow the spark and see where it may lead.
So this is actually, I think, a great time to bring up yet another question that I have, this time for both James and Ella, because it seems like we have two different love interests going here. We have the cute surfer and we have our rival. And both of your books happen to feature two different potential love interests. So I'm really curious, did you always know who was kind of going to be the end game, or, the person that the main character was going to lean towards a little bit more? Or was that more of a question of discovery? Ella, if you don't mind talking about that first.
Absolutely. I 1000% knew who was going to be endgame. It's not a secret whatsoever. So Lola in Viva Lola Espinoza she's not quite a Lizzie Bennet, but she's kind of sort of a Lizzie Bennet. And so therefore she needs both a Darcy and a Wickham. Javi is my Darcy through and through. He is her Darcy Sun, Darcy Moon, Darcy Rising. Whereas somebody once explained to me that a character named Rio is really like a Wickham Sun with a Bingley Rising. So, and obviously the Queen, Jane Austen, that book is 220 years old. I'm not really spoiling for you how that ends up. So yeah, it's no surprise who is endgame there.
I love the Jane Austen references that we're getting here. This is amazing. Yeah, I was pretty much also like, I knew I knew how it was going to end, and I knew who they weren't going to end up with. There were moments where I felt really bad, which is good because I was just like, oh man, like they're both great and like for different reasons. So like I did feel conflicted as I was like drafting it. 'Cause I'm like, oh, I know what has to happen, but I'm kind of sad that it has to happen. Which I hope that like readers then feel too, because if they're, if the choices aren't equal, I feel like it spoils the triangleness of it. So like, I did know from pretty much the beginning, how it was going to wrap up. So it's just a matter of like getting there. And as I was writing the characters, I started liking them more. So it was like, oh, well, I could just subvert this entire thing. It doesn't matter, but yeah, I had to stick with what was supposed to happen, unfortunately. So.
Y'all both really had me guessing, because I didn't realize there were going to be two love interests at both at first. So I was like, whiplash of like, oh no, like there's someone else I also really like, and I don't know who I'm rooting for. So snaps to both of you for making me like kind of everyone, rooting for everyone to get together. But actually, I had this question that I saved for later, but it came up organically. So let's talk about it a little bit now, which is that both of you have kind of this Austen influence on your books. So James, I know in yours, they're literally putting on Pride and Prejudice, but Ella, like you just said, there are so many Pride and Prejudice influences specifically in the characters and the way the story is laid out. So if y'all could talk a little bit about the influences that Austen has had on your work. James, if you don't mind starting.
Yeah, no, so Jane Austen is one of like my favorite authors of all time, and Pride and Prejudice in particular is an all-time I was actually just watching, this is like always the case, but I was just watching the 2005 Pride and Prejudice because I love that so much, so much. But I love that like Jane Austen's humor, it's super like dry, and she'll like, it's very much like a character study. Like you have to pay attention to what people are saying, and it's very subtle, but like I think Pride and Prejudice is like the quintessential like enemies to lovers like story. Like I think it hits all of the beats just so perfectly. Like the first time I read it, I was like, well, I hate Darcy. There's no way that Elizabeth's gonna end up with it. Like that's, and then like the midpoint, I was like, oh, I think I love this man. So like, it was such a like whirlwind, and it's such an emotional, story, and it takes a while. Like it's such a slow burn also that I really appreciate, and I think I've tried to like capture some of that Austen is like characterization with all of my work, and just also like her tone. All her characters are really sarcastic, and all of her characters are really petty, and but they have like a core of caring deeply about the people that are closest to them, and I think that speaks a lot to a lot of us. You know, like we love our friends. There's people that we don't necessarily get along with, um, but no one is as simple as they seem at the beginning. I think that's a big theme with like Austen's work as well. So I've definitely tried to like carry that with me, and even like characters that you're not supposed to like, I still try to like infuse them with some sort of like likability, because you still got to read about them, so you still have to tolerate them.
Yeah, I mean, to James's point, the characters are so complex and they feed off of each other. In Lola, actually, the biggest Austen influence for me was the Bennet family. Lola is a coming of age novel that has romance in it, as opposed to being a strict rom-com, which is actually, I'm of the camp that that's actually what Pride and Prejudice is. It's not a romance, but, you know, as a diehard fan of 2005 as well, I understand where people get the impression that Pride and Prejudice is just a straight romance. But the Bennet family is nosy, and they're nosy because they love each other. That's how they show that they love each other, is being in everybody's business. The Gomez family in Viva Lola Espinoza is exactly the same way. My family is exactly the same way. My dad has 7 sisters in Mexico City, and everybody is in each other's business all the time. And so Lola has 5 aunts and uncles, and then the married aunts and uncles, and then the cousins in between that. There is a family tree within the book, just so that everybody can keep track. I had to keep track with the family tree as I was writing. So, you know, it's really just fun to see the ways in which family can be its own kind of love story. And Bennett, or not Bennett, sorry, the Bennetts do it so well because Austen did it so well, and she does it so well in all of her other books. But by and far, Pride and Prejudice is absolutely my favorite book of all time. I think I was on my 3rd read through of it, into adulthood, that I finally actually picked up the passages that are like, and Darcy realized he was in love with her. And I hadn't picked that up when I was in high school, and not like the 2nd read through. It takes some time to really like get to know it. It's so timeless too. You know, the story's still enduring. And I think there's so much to love in all of that.
Amazing. I'm seeing in the comments too, we got a lot of love for the 2005 Pride and Prejudice. Jane Austen is in the room with us right now. Let's just manifest that energy. All right. So y'all both knew what was going to happen at the end of the story, but we don't know what's going to happen at the end of this love story that we're concocting. So we can get back to the game. All right. So we're feeling the spark, I believe, is where we went. We're feeling this rivals to lovers energy, just like in Pride and Prejudice. We're feeling it. So let's see what happens. You have good instincts. They've had a crush on you for a while, and it just got stronger over the summer. They weren't sure how to say anything. You managed to finish your studies, and at the end, they turn to you and ask, ooh, the tension. Your former rival and now crush asks you on an impromptu road trip to their favorite eating spot. Do you join them? All right. I believe this is inspired by a moment from Viva Lola Espinoza, so I think let's start with Ella for this one.
Absolutely. I took many an impromptu road trip when I was 17, and all I had was gas money and a car and half an idea. So that's really where the spirit of the road trip that I give Lola and TBD love interest, not to spoil it, happens. And besides, like, if there's good food involved, sign me up. I'm there.
Same. I would say seize the day, and my initial, like, yeah, the reason I said that at first was because we're going to go eat. So, you know, I wrote like a foodie book. I have to do like the food, and then the crush and formal rival being there is just the cherry on top, but like I want to go eat. So yes, seize the.
Yeah, I agree. If there's food, you know, I love road trips. Even a bad road trip is a better road trip than not going. So I'm down.
The answer when food is involved is always going to be yes. All right, and another great segue into a question that I have this time for Jessica and Ella. You both already kind of touched on it a little bit just now, but food plays a really big role in both of your debuts. So I'd love to see just, how you decided to incorporate food into it, about the significance in your characters' journeys. I know, Jessica, you already said that you didn't get to try anything, but Ella, if you got to try any food while you were writing, I would love to know more about that. So we can start with Jessica.
I just feel like as a diaspora kid, I'm half Cuban, half Guatemalan. I've been to Guatemala several times. I've never been to Cuba and always wanted to. And I feel that like for a lot of kids like me, food is really one of the only ways to connect to that part of culture. So for Ruby, it's like she is trying to work out and integrate like her Cuban heritage into her life. And so food is a way for her to be able to do that. And yeah, I didn't do any taste testing, but my sister does own a bakery in Los Angeles. Shout out to Elizabeth's Bakery. So I would have her bring me like the bolillos and all like the pan dulce, that is featured in Ruby. And I would like break it apart, smell it, taste it. And I would like talk to her bakers and talk to her of like, okay, how do you make this? So it's like I tried to really incorporate other senses into, the writing of Ruby just beyond the taste of it. I don't have a sweet tooth. So it's like I would have like one or two bites of stuff. Like I'm more of a savory person. So like in Ruby, there's a rosca de reyes that like has like some cajeta, some caramel like inside. And it's like in real life, I always make my sister make it for me, like without any of the sugar on top or the caramel. Like it's like, I just want like the bread and the baby.
Hi, Olive has decided to join in the conversation about food as she's very food motivated as well. But yeah, so Lola, she gets a summer job at her cousin's restaurant in Mexico City. As I was writing Lola, I definitely built up my collection of Mexican cookbooks to study the stuff that I grew up with, the sopes that my grandmother made and still makes all the time. And it really did cause a lot of reflection on how, obviously Mexican food is phenomenal, but also for so much of my life growing up, I was like, oh, this is just what people eat. This is also just food. It didn't need the qualifier because that's just kind of, the standard that I grew up with. As I was writing Lola, I also was fortunate enough to go, I lived in Mexico City for about a month. I've been every single year of my life. But I lived with my grandmother for about a month, watched as she made tortillas, watched as she made just so many dishes that I grew up with. And so being able to present it, and also without kind of explaining it and doing the sidebar and being like, hey, so now they're sitting down to guacamole, which sidebar is a food about mashed avocado. We didn't need to do that. It was just the standard of everybody understands what this food is. And if you don't understand, I'm sure that you can Google and find really, really phenomenal recipes. But also, just as I was saying, how families show that they love each other because they're really nosy. My family shows their love through food and through cooking for each other. And so being able to really, hold that really dear, Lola's cousin opens the restaurant as an homage to their grandmother and all of her recipes. Which causes a lot of tension in the family as well, because, sharing those very time-honored heritage recipes with turistas, as all of Lola's aunts and uncles keep on saying. So yeah, it was truly delicious. It was a great excuse, but I also don't ever need an excuse to pop down to the tamal lady in my neighborhood and pick up 10 tamales.
Amazing. I totally agree with what you were saying too about the way that we can show love through food. I don't know about y'all, but I think one of the most romantic things you can do is the sharing of your culture through food. So that was something I did myself in my debut, was that the love interest is biracial, Korean and Cuban, and the main character is Puerto Rican like me. And I thought it was just like the most romantic thing to be able to share the dishes of your culture. So the main character talks about tres leche cake, which is something from my culture. And then the love interest talks about like choco pies and the like kimchi recipes and the way that you improve your kimchi recipes over time. And it's just, to me, the best way to show what is your home. Basically, you're showing all these things that are part of your life, like arroz con gandules is such an important part of my life. And I was fascinated to find out that not everybody has that. And I think there's something so beautiful about being able to show part of yourself through food specifically. I mean, and who doesn't want to get to know someone through food? It's the most delicious way to get to know someone. So, but thank you for that. All right, we're going to get back to our game. Let's see. All right, we're seizing the day. We're going on a foodie adventure because the answer is always yes. 30 minutes later, you're at the cutest ice cream shop with the best ice cream. You share a bench as you connect over ice cream. This is going to be so cute. Next day, you receive 2 texts. 1, inviting you to your BFF's birthday party. 2, your crush inviting you to the fall dance. They're on the same day. What do you do? Oh, dang, this is a little twist. Okay, are we going to do both? You've seen it done in the movies, though I don't think it ever ends well. Or are we going to the birthday party? He's your bestie. I don't know. Let's start, James.
You know, I'm going to try and do both. I don't think it works the way it's supposed to in the movies. I've tried this in real life, a variation of it. Didn't work because they were at the same time. So, but at this point, is my bestie right now? Like, I don't really. So I'm going to try and do both and see how the evening shakes out.
That's a good point. Because, like, just a little recap, because at this point, we have helped our bestie, but we were being shady about it. And then we ratted out their crush at the baking competition. So we haven't been the best friend, but maybe we need to make it up to him because we have been being, maybe we haven't been being the best friend. I don't know. Ella, what do you think?
I've seen 27 Dresses. I want to meet James Marsden. We're doing both.
Same. It's like I grew up on Mrs. Doubtfire. There's a scene of something similar where Ruby, she tries to do both towards the end. And maybe I do have it end sort of well. So yeah, doing both.
All right. It's unanimous. We're doing both. It might be messy. Let's see. Why did you think this was a good idea? Oh, sorry, y'all. You end up disappointing both your crush and your bestie. The night was a disaster. Oh, dang. Okay, so you messed up. It's high school. It happens. Time for a heart-to-heart with both your bestie and your crush. Heart-to-heart, also heart-to-heart. We got to wrap this up. Yeah, I don't know. What do we think? Are we doing the heart-to-heart or the also heart-to-heart? What do we think?
Structurally, I think we have to. We're at that part of the story.
I think like, the question really is left or right. Are we going to do a regular heart-to-heart or are we going to be salty about it?
Oh, salty.
We're
very salty. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, salty.
All right. I'm declaring the right one is salty. Jessica, do you agree salty?
Yes, I agree. And I'm down for salt. Like if you read Ruby, she puts like sea salt on everything vibes. So yeah, we're doing that.
All right. Ella, are you also down for being salty or are you going to be a kind soul?
No, I mean, typically it's, porque no los dos, which is actually applicable here, but we're being salty about it because if you make me eat my words, I'm not going to be happy about it.
Perfect. All right. We're going the right side. Sadly, romance is not in the cards, but you and your crush end on a good note. Plus, summer is right around the corner. Your best friend takes more convincing, but you promise to make it up to him. Plus, what are best friends for? The end. Yay! A beautiful little ending to our love story with our whatever happened to Hot Surfer? We need to come up with you should read Ruby Ramos if you want to know what happens with the Hot Surfer, actually. So we're going to transition now. I've got a couple questions here that I would like to ask everybody, but you can feel free to throw questions into the chat as well. We can answer those along the way. Please, please, please throw in questions if you have any. But I want to start off with, now that we've finished our own love story, I want to go around and see, does everybody have a favorite love story of all time? And if so, why? Let's start with Jessica.
Well, I need to keep it in theme with the Jane Austen stuff. I am also a huge Jane Austen fan. I've done my pilgrimage to Bath. I've weaseled my way into the Mr. Darcy suite, even though it's like a private residence. So I think a couple years ago, I would have easily said Pride and Prejudice, but now I think I'm going to go, I think my favorite Austen is Emma. So I think that, and I think it's like I go back and forth. And this is a question I wanted to know for all of you guys too, because it's like, what Austen character would we be? I oftentimes think that I'm like Emma, but then I'm like, no, I'm actually Mr. Knightley. And then I'm like, I think I'm both. So I don't know. So I think right now, Emma and Knightley is probably my favorite, but it changes so often, but it's usually always in the Jane Austen universe. So I never stray too far away from that.
Loving the Jane Austen theme we have here. Let's see if Jane Austen's going to pop up again. Ella, you're next.
Well, I already threw love to Pride and Prejudice, which is my favorite book of all time. I actually collect vintage ones. So if I'm in an old, a used bookstore and they have it, I'm allowed to buy it. And so now I'm up to like 20 copies, which is, a healthy obsession to have. But I would also want to throw it to, given that it is Halloween season, even though Halloween season is every single day of the year in my house. I recently also just read Vampires of El Norte, which was beautiful and sweeping and like Zorro with so much yearning and just a really beautifully written book with so much lyrical prose that if you are looking for something for Halloween with, yes, vampires, but also it dives into colonialism, it dives into class structures, it also just is so unrequited for so many pages and so much longing. You should definitely check it out. It's truly, truly phenomenal. Probably my favorite book of the year.
That sounds amazing. I want to check that out for sure. I like the pining. I guess in theme, Pride and Prejudice. I do have to say though, Jessica, I agree. Like, I feel like Emma is definitely like underappreciated by a lot of people, but it's really good. I do like Emma. But yeah, Pride and Prejudice. I think just because of I like the slow burnness. I love the yearning. And I think there's a fair amount of pining on Mr. Darcy's part, which I love because he's so awkward. I'm just like, this is perfect. I love to see this man suffer. So yeah, Pride and Prejudice is probably the one, a close tie, and I'm probably gonna get heat for this, but I love Twilight. I have a deep, undying love of Twilight. I'm always rereading it. I've read the gender flipped one. I read Midnight Sun, and I just like, oh my gosh, I just eat it up. But that one too, for the same reasons. Just that I feel like I love being in a messy narrator's head, and especially when they have no experience with romance. Like Bella was weird and had no idea what was going on, and I loved it. And then you read from Edward's point of view, and it's the same thing. It's like these are both really weird people, but they like each other a lot. And I was like, this is a disaster, but I love it so much. So it's one of those two probably.
On that point though, Darcy is also weird. Darcy is also just a weird man who is socially inept because he is so rich that nobody has ever been anything but nice to him. He's just kind of a weird dude. And I'm so sorry to all of the English teachers watching this and now putting their heads in their hands, but the moral of Pride and Prejudice is that you could bully a man into falling in love with you. And that is why I love it. So the more you can really just kind of it's fun. It's so much fun. On the Emma train, I do have to say that I do think Emma Woodhouse is probably the most annoying character in the history of English literature. But to her credit, Knightley has the best love declaration also in the history of English literature. So it's kind of 6 of one, half a dozen of the other.
Dang, shots fired here. But I like that there's a vampire theme here, though. There's some real love here for vampires. I love that. I feel they're going to come back, which is what we love to see. I want to very quickly throw some love to Honey and Spice, which is a adult romance that just came out very recently, or not very recently, but within the past year. It has in the vein of what Ella just said. There is a moment where the male love interest just does a very specific thing. There it is. Oh, look at that beautiful cover. It does a very specific thing that is very nerdy and just so sweet that if you are a nerd who loves books, who loves fanfic, who loves just really loving couples in books, there is a scene in here that you will eat up. It is so, so good. When it happened, I was kicking my feet It was just so, so, so exciting. I was very obsessed with it. But moving on to the next question. And so now that we're talking a little bit about love stories, what drew all of you to writing romance? We are all YA writers for a specifically teen audience versus, writing middle grade, writing adult. What drew you to YA specifically? Oh, we can start with James.
So when I started writing, I was still a teenager. So it started as like just trying to work out what I was like going through. And I think it persisted because everything's so much bigger in YA, because a lot of times it's like your first time experiencing things. So you get to have like, and even in contemporary, especially, like you can have a contemporary setting, but have these big sweeping like love stories and all these big feelings and emotions, and everything feels like it's the end of the world. Like your first breakup is just the worst thing ever. Your first like love is like the best thing ever. So it's such I think a fertile ground for like exploring those things. And since, so many of us have experienced a similar thing, it very much brings us all to a similar place where we can like remember these feelings. If the specifics are different, the emotions behind them are still the same. And I think that's very powerful and can speak to people, regardless of age. So I think that's why I keep coming back to that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Ella, do you want to weigh in?
Absolutely. I fully agree that, there needs to be, if not a roadmap, then at least just a reminder that you're not alone. So like, as I mentioned previously, Lola is more of a coming of age with a romance B plot, as it were. And I think that's really important because romance is part of coming of age. Romance is part of growing up. Romance is, you're going to have your first crush. You're going to realize that your first crush didn't deserve you. You're going to go on to your second crush and your third and so on. And you're also going to realize that the sky did not fall, that the sun kept shining, that you're okay. And now you know what you're worth, you know who you like and what, you're not going to stand for anymore. So that was always really important, is really finding that balance between learning how to fall in love with yourself as well and how to be your own person, while at the same time learning how to process the emotions of first love and first heartbreak. And, oh no, this person who I thought was a jerk, maybe I actually really do like them. And I had my, initial thoughts about them all wrong, because that can and does happen too. So I thought all of that was super important. And then, of course, this is the Latinx Kidlit Book Festival. There need to be, and there are more, and there should always be so many more stories centering Latina young people falling in love. When I was younger, there were none. There was Real Women Have Curves, which I still really, really adore as a movie. But the more that we can contribute to the canon, and there's so many authors and filmmakers and even songwriters doing so many phenomenal things and reminding us that, we are also the centers of our own love stories, the better.
Yeah, I'm just going to piggyback off of both those answers and bring in a little bit of what James said before. It's like in Twilight, and I know, Twilight gets like a lot of criticism now, but like one of the things that I loved was that was the first time in YA fiction I saw someone having like these cringe thoughts, about a guy and just being so unabashedly like accepting of him. And so I loved that. And so I wanted to bring that, like Rubi, she has some cringe moments when she first meets like Ryan and like all of these things. And I like love that. But yeah, like for me, it was important, like growing up, like I'm of a certain age. So I didn't have really like the type of books that we have now in kids lit. And even still, it's like there's like, it seems like there's like a lot, because we could have like festivals like this that center it, but like in the grand scheme of things, like we still got a long way to go. And so me trying to center that as well, like it has always been something like really important to me. And Rubi is very much so also like Ella's book, a coming of age with a romance subplot. And yeah, but like for me, like I just love of all kinds, whether it's food of your first love, your family, your history, all of that. So I try to do all of that in this. And yeah, I'm so excited that I have like a book out there with like a brown girl with like wild curly hair on the cover, because growing up I didn't have that.
Amazing. I think we actually have a great question in the chat that would be perfect to piggyback off of this, which are what Latinx authors influenced you to write, or what the Latinx characters helped you to feel seen when you were a teenager? I just want to very quickly shout out Adam Silvera, who is, the first time I read any type of queer Puerto Rican literature, and to see the way the world has just embraced his stories, like they're New York Times bestsellers, is amazing to me. I'm absolutely obsessed with his books. And also, I really, really loved reading Crystal Maldonado's work. Like, that's another Puerto Rican author that I just adore. Anytime I get to read anything about queer Latinas, I feel so seen, because that was something that for a long time I personally didn't think could coexist. Those were two identities that had to be kept separate. And there's just such a beautiful amount of queer Latina work out there. And it's very encouraging to see more of that now. But let's go to James. Tell us who you're loving. Who influenced you?
So right now, growing up, I feel like there was, and I think that's kind of a theme in the conversation here. There wasn't a lot of, I didn't see a lot of myself in like books. And if I did, it was like a secondary character that was put in there, and they were like just an amalgam of every like Latinx stereotype you could think of. So it was like, that's weird. But now I think honestly, it's like my peers, like all of you, like reading all of these books. My friend Sonara Reyes, seeing all of these, Latinx authors, and just the like diversity of the stories has been really inspiring, and really like inspiring me to bring like my culture into my stories and my books. Because honestly, when I was younger, I didn't do that because I didn't know that you could do that. I thought that was something that wasn't, you had to kind of like trim away in order to write, because that's all I had been exposed to. So now, being here and all of the authors that are involved in this, it's so inspiring, and it makes me want to continue to do that. And I love, like you said, Jessica, seeing like all of these brown people on covers of books lately with like, it's just amazing. And then like the Latinx surnames, I love that. Like, I love it so much. Like I liked when when I saw Jessica's book, I was like, that's my name. Like, that's so cool. So like, I didn't see that, growing up at all. So this has been these last couple of years have been super, super inspiring. I'm super grateful for everyone that's just telling their stories.
Sonora Reyes is amazing. Lesbiana's Guide to Catholic School. Mwah, such a good book. But let's start over to Jessica.
Okay, well, it's really important, because I do think it's like, and I'm a lawyer, and it's like I was like the first person to graduate from like college, go to and go get a degree, after a graduate degree. And so all of these things academically were like a possibility to me, but it never occurred to me until I was in my 30s that I could, be a kids lit author. And it was Nina Moreno's work, where it was just like Rubi, her original last name was Santos. So when I saw that name, speaking of seeing names on books, I was like, oh my God, this could be a thing. There's like space at the table for these types of stories. So anything that Nina Moreno writes, I'm so down for. But growing up, I really didn't have any just like rom-com type of happy, uplifting stories, featuring someone that looked like me. It was always something that was like more centered like pain or trauma. So I think the first thing was like, honestly, J-Lo. Like, it's like in a lot of her movies, it wasn't about her being Puerto Rican. It was just about her living her life and doing these things. So she's like such an inspiration to me, that my sophomore novel that comes out like next year is like a YA version of The Wedding Planner. And it's just like straight up like hijinks, and it's again, I think, a coming of age with like a romance subplot, but I snuck in 2 romances in there. So I'm like, let's try to like amp this up.
There's so many books right now that are just being so phenomenal and thoughtful about the intersections of our identities. I'm just looking around at all my bookshelves. Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas is absolutely phenomenal. Isabel Cañas, both of her books I already just mentioned, Vampires of El Norte. To keep it on the Pride and Prejudice front, Pride by Evie Zoboy is a note-for-note retelling of Pride and Prejudice, starring a Dominican family in Brooklyn. So if you haven't read that, it's really, really phenomenal. And something else that I really love too is we're no longer italicizing the Spanish. We're not translating it. We're not putting in footnotes. If you understand it, that's great. And if you don't, it's immersive. And I promise you, it's not scary. You can learn. I'm still learning Spanish. When I was a little kid, I would respond to my father in English. And it took me a very long time to study the conjugations and to feel really confident in my Spanish. And so the more books we have that don't otherize any of these languages, whether it's Spanish, whether it's any other language, I think the better. It might be a little jarring, but that's how it's supposed to be. You know, Lola gets a C in Spanish, and that's why she shipped off to Mexico City. So it makes sense that she's not actually going to understand everything that these other characters are going to say. But it's Mexico City. People are going to speak Spanish. People are going to speak indigenous languages sometimes, and you're not going to understand them. And that's okay. And it's finding a way to hit that middle ground and understand each other and really, you know, do work on both sides. To make sure that you know, you can bond and connect, because going to Mexico and expecting that everybody speaks English, even though most people do, we're not about that anymore. So the more that we can really celebrate our languages, multiple, all of them, because no one language is going to set, you know, define your Latinidad, the better.
All right, amazing. I think, do we have time? Let's do maybe one more question. Let's see, can we get one more question in here? Let's see. All right. Can we do Christina's question? We have a question here. Perfect way to sum it up after we made our own love story. What do you think is the most important ingredient for a good love story? We can do kind of, I know we're running short on time, so we can do very rapid fire. Let's start with Jessica.
Someone who cheerleads for you. So you're someone that really supports you and is always going to be like your number one fan, even when you want to be salty or shady.
James, what do you think?
Chemistry. It has to be some sort of chemistry there for it to work, I think.
I'm a big fan of growth. You both each have to grow separately and together, and become better people for it.
I'm going to throw in my 2 cents, which is that the love interest has to have an arc of their own and wants and desires, which just makes them all the more desirable at the end of the story. So that's us. You can check out all of our books, Everyone's Amazing Book here, and I highly recommend it. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm so sad that this has to end. I wish we could go for another 2 hours because this is just so much fun. Thank you all so much, and we hope that you have enjoyed this panel and that you check out the rest of the Latinx Kidlit Book Festival. Thank you so much.